In this tutorial, we'll discuss how we can use CSS with the PyQt6 GUI library in Python. Now, PyQt6 is a very powerful and feature-rich library, and one of the main reasons, in my opinion, behind why it's so amazing is that it employs the use of CSS, or QSS as it's referred to within PyQt6. Okay, now that's actually very interesting because CSS is its own thing, a very popular web technology that's used in front-end development, and PyQt6 is actually able to incorporate CSS within it. So you can actually use CSS styles within it, and CSS is like a fully developed styling language. You can apply all kinds of amazing features, amazing effects, and we'll actually discuss those in today's video. So if you're already familiar with CSS, then you'll already know quite a bit of what's going to be discussed in this video. Okay, you just need to learn about how you can integrate CSS with PyQt6. Okay, and just a warning to those of you who are already fluent in CSS, that PyQt6 does not support all features of CSS. It actually supports a pretty old version of CSS, like I think CSS version 2 point something, 2.1 something, alright? So there's some newer features that won't work, but the base core, the core concept, the core features are all there. So that's great. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin. Those of you who are not familiar with CSS, don't worry, you'll understand this very simply. CSS is very, very simple to understand. Okay, so this code over here, you can see I've already written. This is from a previous video of mine where we created a simple login form. Let me run this code for you. So obviously we're not going to be applying CSS to the thin air, right? We're going to be applying it to this login form. Okay, because we actually need a GUI application that we're going to be applying the CSS styles on. Okay, so this is a pretty good example. So let me just actually remove some code. Okay, some of this stuff here, we don't really need that for this video. Okay, the less the better. All right, and yeah, the rest is good. The rest is okay. We'll leave that in. So it's time to begin adding CSS. Okay, now there are 4 different techniques. There are 4 different ways we can add CSS into our GUI application. Let's discuss method 1. Okay, and by the way, all of these methods are unique. You don't need to know just one. You need to know all 4, because you might want to use all 4 at the same time in the same program. Okay, depending on what you're doing and the scale at which what you're doing. Okay, so let's discuss the first one. I'm going to navigate down here. Okay, because we're going to be applying the first CSS method across our whole Q application. Okay. What this means is that when we apply CSS styles on an application level, it's going to affect the entire application. Okay, all the windows, all the containers, all the widgets inside of it will be affected by the CSS styles. Okay, and don't worry, you'll understand this more and more as we discuss this method and the other methods. Okay, so you just use the set style sheet function. Okay, and within the parameters, you actually pass in a multi-line string. Technically, just a single string is fine, but that's a real pain to actually write CSS that way. It's much easier if you do it the way I'm showing you guys right now. Okay, so just do this. And what we have here is that we can begin writing some CSS code. Okay, so at this point, you just write CSS completely normally. Okay, the way you normally see online or through your past experience. Okay, if you're interested in more CSS stuff, by the way, just look it up online. You'll find tons of tutorials on CSS. You'll see how to write CSS code, the different ways of using it and all that, because we can't possibly hope to cover all of those in today's video, right? So you can just go online as well. All right, so what I'll first do is apply a style on our Q widget. I'm just going to write the Q widget class name. Okay, and just as a reminder, Q widget is the name of the class that our window inherits from. Okay, so basically I'm referring to my window when I use this. Okay, so open up these curly braces, and within this we're going to be writing the CSS code for our Q widget class. Now anything I write in here is only going to affect the Q widget. Okay, it won't affect the Q push button, for example, or the Q label. So what I'm going to do is change the background color. This is a CSS property, by the way, background color. And again, look them up online. Look up a complete list of these online if you want to later on. There are like hundreds of them. So I'm going to change this to green. All right. And remember the semicolon. And yeah, let's just run this for now. Okay. And you'll notice that the entire screen has now turned green. So yeah, that's exactly what we wanted. We just changed the background color of our window to green. Okay, now let's make another change. Another change that we want to apply across the entire widget. Okay, now let's change the font color. Okay, the font color is decided by the QWidget class. Okay, so currently the black doesn't look very good with the dark green behind it. So let's change the font color. Okay, this is changed by simply doing color. Background color changes the background color, like literally, and color changes the foreground color. Okay, so just change this to white and we'll be able to see the text a lot more clearly. Alright, not bad. Let's continue. Okay, so let's add in some styles for the other widgets as well. So for example, let me go to the Q line edit widget, and I feel like there's a slight problem with it because currently the background for it is showing up as green. Okay, so let's change that. Let's change the background color for the Q line edit widget to white. All right, and this will return it back to normal. Great, great, right? So we can see here that our application looks better than it used to in the start without any styles. I think the green adds a nice touch, but we need to improve it. Okay, this is not enough. So let's, for example, change the font size. Okay, so what I can do, and I just want to change the font size, for example, for the buttons. I don't want to change the text size on the label, just the button. So what I'll do is go to the QPushButton class, open up the brackets, the curly brackets, do font size, and I'll change it to 16 pixels. All right, and this will make the button text a lot larger. All right, you can see that it's larger than the username and password. All right, so yeah, before we move on, let's discuss how we can apply CSS styles in other ways as well. For example, you can apply this. Let me just copy all of this. All right, now you can actually apply this not only on an application level, you can apply it on a window level as well. All right, now this is not going to make any difference for our current application. All right, can you guess why? The reason for this is that we have just one window in our application. Just remember this. There can only be one application, but there can be multiple windows. Okay, so when I say apply a style sheet on an application level, it means apply it to all of those windows within it. When I say apply a style sheet to a window, it means just to that window. There may be other windows that we don't want to apply it to. Okay, there may be 2 or 3 windows in our application and we want different style sheets for them. So in that case, you would use the set style sheet function on the window widget. Okay, not the application. Okay, but since we have just one window, it's giving the same effect. Okay, so yeah. Now, what else can we do? Actually, let me show you something as a slight bonus. Let's create another window, and let me go down here and do window2.show. Okay, so what this does is creates an identical replica, and only one of them has the styles applied to it. Can you guess why? Well, of course, it's because of what I just mentioned, that we're only applying the style sheet on the first window, not the second. Okay, now if I take this and apply this on an application level, it's going to affect both of our windows. All right, so I think that's the best way I could possibly show the difference, and I hope you guys understood that. All right, so let me just leave this on application level because we only have one window. Let me just remove the second one, and there we go. All right, so that's method 2. Method 3 is applying, well, it's actually, should we discuss separate style sheets first, or should we discuss separate labels first? Well, let's discuss how to create a separate file for our CSS. Okay, because for example, let's say you had 200 lines of CSS. Would you really want to cramp it in here along with your other code for PyQt? So you wouldn't want to do that, right? That'd get messy. So what you could do, and what many people do, is create a separate file. So I'll go here, create a new file, call it styles.css, and I'm gonna take this code and copy it in here. Okay, now what I'll do is just remove this. Okay, and I'm going to I need to actually open up this file now and read the data from it, then put that data into this function. So with open and styles.css, and then I'm gonna do read as file. I'm just gonna move this inside app.stylesheet file.read. Okay, now let me just change the path down here a bit, cd tutorials, and let me move over to my PyQt6 folder, and let me run this code now. Okay, it should give us the same output, and yes, it does. Great. So yeah, let me just move that back in here right now, and just so we have it all in one file. We don't have much code anyways, so it makes sense. And this is just for the sake of a tutorial. Okay, in a more practical application, I would recommend creating a separate file. Okay, so yeah. Now the fourth method and the final method is how we can apply CSS to just a single widget. Okay, now for example, let's say that I want to make this title over here. I want to make the title large. I want to increase the size of the text for the title because it's a heading, right? But the problem is that if I change it using this, if I do this, okay, and I make the font size 18, the problem is that the username and password are also getting enlarged. Okay, I don't want to do that. All right, so how would I fix this? Okay, well, luckily there's a very simple way of doing so. And where is the title? Here's our widget. I'm just gonna go here and use the set style sheet function on it, and I'll just pass in the required parameter. And guess what? Only the heading is now size 18, because we applied the style on just a single widget. And this is the fourth method, widget-specific style sheets. Okay, so yeah. Now, obviously, we've just discussed the different methods so far. We have a lot more to discuss, so stay tuned. All right, so what I want to do now is actually use CSS style effects. Okay, for example, I move my cursor over to this button, but it's not doing anything. Do I know whether it's actually hovering over it or not? What if my application is hanging or something? Because often when I'm using a software, and if I move my if I move my cursor over to a button and it doesn't give me some kind of hover effect like a highlight or something, and then I just assume that the application is crashing or going slow or getting unresponsive, because almost every GUI application gives you some kind of effect when you move over the button. For example, let's take a look at VS Code here. If I move over any of these over here, which are effectively buttons, they're giving me a hover effect. Okay, so let me just close this and let me show you how to add these effects in. So I'm going to copy this over here and just remove this. Okay, and what I'll do is add in a colon here and write hover. Okay, now whatever I write in here is going to be belonging to a special set of CSS styles that trigger only when we are hovering over the Q push button widget. Okay, so for example, let me say that I change the background color of the Q push button to red whenever we hover over it. So if I do this now, and if I move my cursor over it, it turns red. Okay, great. That's a special effect right there. It looks much better. And what we can also do is maybe even increase the size if that's something you want to do. Okay, so the default size is 16, right? We can change it to 17. Okay, gives a nice pop in, pop out kind of effect. Okay, so what else can we do? Well, let's take a look at some other special functions, some other special properties like focus. Okay, background color, let's make this blue. Okay, and now focus is a special property that triggers whenever something is currently in focus. What focus means is that it's currently selected. Okay, currently what is selected? Can you notice? Do you notice what is currently selected in this window? It's this entry widget over here. Okay, now if I click on the button, it's going to be in focus. Let me click on it right now, and now it's focused. Okay, it's currently blue. Okay, now only one widget at a time can be in focus, so if I click on this, it'll turn blue and that will turn back to normal. Alright, so yeah, that's focus for you. Let's add in focus onto our QLine edit widget as well. Let's add focus and we'll change the background color to gray. So if I run this now, and whichever one of these I click on is going to be gray, which is a decent way of finding out which one you've currently selected. Okay, so again, a handy feature. Another feature to keep in mind is active. Active is like the default state though, so it's not something I would really use. Like basically what I mean is that active is like the default state. Okay, when the button is currently responsive and you can click on it and everything, that means it's active. If I run this code, it'll just show you the exact same thing. Okay, so anyways, there's also disable, by the way. You can use that if you're interested. It defines the Q push buttons style if it's currently disabled. Okay, of course you can disable it through CSS code. That's done through PyQt6 code, but that's a topic for another time. Alright, so we've made a lot of progress. We've covered a lot of different styles and different things we can do. That's really good. Okay, and obviously there's a lot more. We've barely scratched the surface. If you want to learn more CSS, you can always look it up online, look up those CSS tutorials, learn about the different properties and so on. Now there's just one thing left that we need to cover, and that's the concept of classes. Okay, and I don't mean the Q push button, Q label kind of classes. I mean something else. I mean CSS classes this time. Okay, so for example, let's say that we have 10 labels. Okay, and 2 of these labels are titles, headings. 4 of these are regular text, and 4 of these are some kind of special text like quotes or something. Okay, now you want to apply different CSS styles for the headings, different CSS styles for the regular text, different CSS styles for the special text. Okay, now the problem is, are you going to go around and individually add style sheets onto each widget? No, you won't. Okay, that's not a good idea. Okay, that's gonna take time and effort, and why do that when there's already a solution available? Okay, so currently let's analyze our current GUI. We have 2 subsets. We have 2 categories of labels. We have 1 which is a heading and 2 which are regular text. So let's develop a system that no matter how many no matter how many headings we have, or no matter how many regular text labels we have, we can just define the style once for the heading, and no matter how many headings there are, we can apply that style onto all of those headings. Is there a way to do that? Well, yes, there is. What we'll do is use the set property function. What this does is sets the class property of CSS to a value. Okay, now this value is up to us. Okay, I'll explain where this comes into play later on. So what I'll do is simply call this heading, and for the other 2 we'll do the same thing, but we'll call them normal text. Okay, normal, or this can be anything else, by the way, it's arbitrary. So I'll just do the same for the second one as well and call it normal. Okay, now what I want to do is go down here and let's just make these changes at the top. What I'll do is for dot heading, I'm going to define a set of styles. Okay, and that's actually where the name comes into play, because we're going to do dot and then the name of the class. And now in these brackets, I can define whatever styles I wish to apply on all the widgets that have this class. Okay, so for example, for the heading, what did we have? We had the font size of 18, right? And for the normal text, what I had was nothing really, right? Nothing. So let's just add in something of our own. Let's change the color to yellow. I know that's a terrible color to put on GUI, but okay, that's fine. So if I just run this, you'll see that these are now yellow, and this is like always 18 pixels. And whatever changes I make here will now be reflected in all the widgets following this style. So again, this is pretty handy, it's pretty useful, and yeah, this marks the end of our CSS tutorial series. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something new. If you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Okay, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys in a later video.